Welcome back to another episode of Journey of the Wounded Masculine. I am Brandon Trasick, and this is
Shane Estes, and this is episode 2.
episode two. Episode two. I mean, we got a pretty good topic of what we think we want to be talking today. Kind of, what's it like to live a grounded life? What does that mean? I know it's something I've struggled with quite a lot in my life, and I think it's going to be a great topic to discuss.
Yep. Also about consciousness and what does that mean? What the hell does it mean to be conscious?
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll dig into that. But one thing I wanted to do before we do that, and this is something we've learned through the week, is some feedback from the previous podcast. And the previous podcast we had just talking about, how we connect in our pain. And so I had somebody comment on a Facebook post about that and had permission to share, but I'll leave names out. And just how that struggle is. So essentially what she was saying was that when I'm in my pain, I can't connect with somebody that's happy. You just can't relate. Or when I'm happy, I can't connect to somebody that's in their pain. There's a jealousy issue there or what have you. It'd be better served if I actually read it, but I just want to give you a little So when I'm having what I call a mental day and I see someone having happy, a jealousy surfaces. When I thought was jealousy, but saying I couldn't relate to that person, to the moment, is more of a realistic statement. When I'm struggling, I can't relate to happiness. When I'm happy, I can't relate to struggling, even if I have the same struggles. That make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I mean, I feel like I experience that quite a bit. One thing that I try to remember for myself when I'm learning is that, there's a practice to life, It's like when I see myself experiencing jealousy in a moment, like let's say I see somebody living a life that I would like to live and I feel that jealous thing come up inside of me. What I like to do is use that as a moment to practice. It's like, oh, this negative feeling is coming up inside of me, but I can choose to practice another feeling in that moment, So I can choose, okay, I am feeling jealous, and that's telling me that that's what I want. And how about I practice being happy for that person, for having the thing that I want, and then I believe that will create the energy for the thing to actually come to us. Mm-hmm. We've grown up in this culture that's, really void of love in a lot of ways. And I feel growing up in that, we just don't, no one taught us to do that.
Right.
These negative feelings and thoughts have just been running unchecked, and so I think if we just practice.
But what is that?
So that's practice to me is being aware of the feeling, using our consciousness to, oh, here I am having this negative feeling. This is an opportunity for me to practice the opposite.
I find it quite ironic that this is actually tying into our whole conversation. Uh-huh. So let's talk about consciousness then.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. So, what do you got to say about consciousness?
What I have to say about consciousness, let's read the definition first.
You got a definition in your book?
I do have a definition.
Look at you.
Okay. Consciousness. And this comes from verywellminded.com. Consciousness refers to your individual awareness of your unique thoughts, memories, feelings, sensations, and environments. Essentially, your consciousness is your awareness of yourself and the world around you. I thought that's pretty well put.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're practicing, I feel, is when you're doing that. You're aware. You feel that feeling come up of jealousy or whatever it may be in that moment, and you're practicing self-awareness. So what do I do in this moment instead of being jealous or whatever? You're recognizing it's not wrong to feel that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're recognizing, and I do the same thing. And then I try to have a different behavior associated with that instead of just being unconscious altogether.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and I think we also have to really realize that this is a learning process.
Yep.
It's not something that just happens overnight. It's like having these things come up time after time over periods of years. It becomes like a lifelong thing to where we're constantly sifting through all of these things that were left unchecked for however long until we have some kind of awakening that opens the doors and it's like, wow, there's all this stuff there. That's kind of scary. And then through that process, it can be really easy to get down on ourselves. But the truth is, we all have to deal with negative feelings and all those things. We all have that.
Yeah, that's true. And there's something that I recently, last few months ago, I learned from Matt Kahn is just to love yourself. Like in those moments, if I have, say I'm just judging the hell out of somebody, right? I mean, if I'm judging, there's pain inside of me. And then I just say, Shane, I love you. I love that part of you that's being judgmental, you know? And I feel that pain with love for myself. Mm-hmm. And then now I can have a different reaction to it instead of just continuing in that judgment. I forgive myself too. I forgive you. I forgive myself for it, but I also practice that self-love.
Yep.
And that's awareness.
Yeah, that is awareness in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Practicing that while still being easy on ourselves. Because
Mm-hmm.
really, us being hard on ourselves only perpetuates the negative, lower vibrational kind of feelings.
Yeah.
And the only way to move beyond them is to accept, like, oh, I'm having this feeling, and what can I do, to counterbalance this in this moment.
And like we said last week too, it's all circles back to you. We always look outside for ourselves for these modalities or different principles. But here we are, all we're doing is self-awareness. We're practicing that. And the lessons are within our daily lives. Everything that I ever do, I have lessons every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Which kind of tunes us into like being grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Just this, what is it? What is it to live a really grounded life? We have a lot of, through my own journey, there's a lot of spiritual talk out there now. There's a lot of manifesting. There's a lot of different avenues that are really popular out there right now. And
Sure.
My journey through those, it's kind of like,
Turns
those
you
things
off.
never really worked for me. Actually, those kinds of things seemed like ungrounding, and it seemed ungrounding and was actually holding me back from really facing what I need to face each day.
Mm-hmm.
I think true groundedness is accepting where you're at. Truly accepting where you're at, your whole life, everything, all the challenges, all the stuff, and saying, okay, I'm going to face this. I'm going to get up and go to work today. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to do the things I'm inspired to do each day.
Mm-hmm.
And meet the day instead of getting caught in the ego's desires of like, well, I want to manifest this and I want to manifest that because I'm not happy right here. So I need these things to get happy. And it's just like, well, that doesn't work. I'm learning, if you can learn to be happy in the life you've got, it just opens the doors for everything else to just start coming in.
Yeah, but also on the other flip side of that is also embracing our shadow, I think. The happiness and bringing things into our lives, but doing the shadow work, and we alluded to it last week. And that's a constant daily process too, going through our wounds of our past, going through the adult wounds too, and things that we didn't even realize were wounds. And it's not a cop-out either, I don't think. It's more of a recognition, awareness of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a point, and I'm going here real quick, but I wanted to read this, if you don't mind. This is just from Merriam-Webster's dictionary about grounded. It's mentally and emotionally stable. That's what it means. Mentally and emotionally stable to be grounded.
That was the Webster's dictionary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Things are changing, right?
Well, they're like, wow, so spot on. I don't know how many years I spent where I'd have people tell me, like, man, you need to get grounded. I'm like, well, what is it?
Right.
And I have people tell me, oh, you got to do this special meditation. You got to do this and this and that. And it's like, well, man, none of that shit ever worked for me.
Yeah.
That didn't get me grounded.
But what does it mean, like, to be mentally and emotionally stable, like, as a man? And I kind of go back to a counselor of mine, and he had put it this way. And I was struggling during this time, the cave experience, I like to call it, my 3 or 4 months of my darkness, And my emotions that I had prior to that, in a end of a relationship, basically what happened, And during that time, I was going through so many different awakenings and realizations of deep seated roots. My wounded masculine was back when I was 12 or 8 years old, and I realized that during that time, and it created this unstable emotional thing for me. And I was reacting. I was angry. I'm just spouting off at stupid things that don't normally bother me. And he kind of put it this way: is he said, think of your emotions as an uneven loaded box, like, and you're carrying this across the room, and anytime that it goes, it can shift. And he says you never want to shift too far to one side or the other, and that's mental, emotionally stable. So it's like this balance you're walking through life of just balancing those emotions. And what's more attractive than a man who has his emotions in check? Mm-hmm. Not that we can't express them. It's just we don't want to be overly angry because that's a toxic masculine, and we don't want to be overly sensitive too, because that's more of what.
Yeah, there's a balance.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a sensitive man, but also hold your own.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of went from being like a hypersensitive man, like more feminine kind of energy, to over these last years just really getting a sense of what it's like to be a man. And I really love it now because, man, I used to be so emotional. It's just like I was an emotional wreck. I'd go to work and people didn't know who they were gonna get that day. They're like, oh, I wonder who we're gonna get today. Is it cranky Brandon, or is it like hyper happy one?
Yeah.
And and I'm now finding this place of just being quite balanced each day, and it feels really good.
Yeah.
And it took a lot to get there.
Yeah.
It took a lot to get there.
And I kind of come from the other perspective, and that's why I think we mesh so well, because you give this other perspective, and I came from more of the hyper masculine, like you were saying. And it wasn't like I meant to do that, but it was a wound that happened. And, I had a family member go off on me, and I was 8 years old, and chased me, and I was running for my life, and I hid. And I hid near a staircase in a trailer park, and I didn't come out until I heard the voice of my mother. And I never wanted to feel that ever again. That I never wanted to feel helpless, or that that I could be hurt. And so what did I do? I didn't even realize I was doing it, but I became the toughest, badass I could, right? Martial arts, the military, wrestling. I did everything I could never to be harmed again. And so I took that masculinity to a different realm. Was I still a kind person? Yes. But I couldn't show emotions. I couldn't cry. My mom died. And I rarely ever cried at all. I mean, it'd be 6 years before you'd see tears out of my eyes. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd watch a movie and I start crying. It's like, I love this part. Because when I was in that masculine, I was just like, man, I wish I could be that guy, that jealousy, back to the jealousy. I was kind of jealous of that. Like, how does he show his emotions like that? Well, I needed to do my healing first. And I didn't even recognize that until this past year, or where that came from. So I had a brokenness in my masculinity, and I didn't even know it. And it came out as this rage. And I wasn't rage toward everybody, but when I lose my shit, I lose my shit.
You lose your shit.
Yeah. And it's not pretty. And I used to be proud of that. No, not so much. Mm-hmm. But I'm grateful for the balance I have in my life now, So, yeah.
Yay. Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah. It's usually I cry on that, but it's, that realization really, really made a lot of impact in my life. And I feel that, and then a brokenness from my mom during that time too. My mom passed away 20 years ago, and I never really processed those feelings. And it all came up this last time because the divorce that happened was a loss, an abandonment. So I had that abandonment of my mother, who didn't choose to die. She just did, but I still had to process all those feelings, right? Mm-hmm. And I let myself do it. I wasn't working during that time. I had some money saved up, and I just literally went into my cave, and I carried water, and I chopped wood, and I cried. I cried, I belly cried. I went from the depth of my soul, cried out, and I let go of control, or needing to know, and that's when my healing really began. you know, and it was just recently, you know, you were right there with me with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so why I share that is, you know, we did say we would get more vulnerable and transparent, and that, you know, us as men, we, you know, as much as we think we have it figured out, or as much as you think that guy across the street looks and he's doing the part, you know, he's living the life that you want to live. What kind of demons is he really carrying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or what is she carrying? And I don't want to exclude the feminine. I know we're talking about the masculine, but the feminine is also important. Why? Without my mom, without realizing what I needed in that moment and healing that part of her, I loved her to death. She was the, you know, she was amazing. I needed that feminine energy to heal, and the sacred feminine is a healing energy, and we
Mm-hmm.
need that in our lives.
Yeah, we as men need, you know, it's like looking at a lot of my own wounding, you know, it's like a lot of my core wounding comes from having a lack of like genuine feminine nurturement, you know, and without that, you know, all kinds of problems surface, addictions, and, you know, when you're kind of like starving for that, and the only way to numb the pain is a bottle of whiskey or smoking lots of cannabis or whatnot, you know, it's just, we all need it. We all need it, and yeah,
Yeah, but it's that process, you know.
it's a process.
You're allowing yourself to feel through it, and that's what's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know we were gonna go there. That's awesome.
That's great. I like not knowing where we're going.
Yeah. Well, with that said, too, you know, I think I was talking to Kelly about this too, and she brought it up about just that feminine perspective as well. And I talked to you earlier, and we were going to bring that into our podcast too. That we'd like the feminine perspective each week to get a take on our subject.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I love it. I love it, and I really liked seeing how, you know, just in releasing our first video with the intention of connecting to men, just like how many women were actually interested in what we had to say.
Yeah. I was shocked by that too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here we are doing a masculine thing, and the women are just as interested as the men are. So,
Yeah.
So it's pretty balanced, I think, in that approach. So I think it's important to bring that into the podcast.
I think so too.
So,
Yeah.
cool. So I asked Kelly about that. And
Yeah.
We're going to ask different female, women that and their perspectives on our different subjects as we go along. But can I share it now?
Yep.
So here's what she had to say about it. I just asked her what did groundedness and what did consciousness mean to her as a female. And she said, for me, to be conscious in mind and grounded in spirit in the divine feminine is to be secure. That hit me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it hits me too. You know, I think it's a core need in us all. You know,
That's
to feel that security. You know, you can't grow and flourish as a person unless you have those base security needs met. You know?
But I think the security is not only in the individual, but the security is in the masculine that she trusts too,
Mm-hmm.
within herself, but also with her partner. Because as a man, if we are really trying to heal and we give that secure place for the women in our lives, then that feminine can really blossom, because they
Yeah.
don't have to be in their masculine and protecting themselves all the time.
Yep.
If they trust their man, they can let that inner child play. And I think so many of us, not just women, but us men too, we want the child to play.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's what I got from that too. So back to this, not just in who I am, but who I want to be. Not looking at my imperfections as flaws, but looking at them as battle wounds and loving myself unconditionally for the fights within and without, that I have won, making my trials and tribulations my testimony of a great warrior, being alive and present in every moment, and ultimately having a partner that loves me unconditionally as much as I love myself, that reiterates my strengths and supports and uplifts my weaknesses. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's balance. Yeah, and I mean, just to talk about that for a minute, we all have insecurities, right? About our bodies, about the way we look, about everything.
The list is endless.
Yeah, and as a woman, as a mother, especially, you get, you know, stretch marks and like I call them, the war wounds kind of thing, and you should be proud of those and love those and embrace that in your woman. They're beautiful. I mean, that's the mark of motherhood. Like, why isn't that celebrated and beautified? Instead, we have these images of women that are not true and not who the real feminine are. So, and that's just my opinion, obviously. But what is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I really, getting on beauty and just the way our society is really tries to funnel women into this, that they're not beautiful naturally. Like sell makeup and all these things, and I'm a big anti-makeup person, and I just love women that like own their natural beauty, and I've recently learned like a little bit of makeup can be nice to like accentuate, but I think a lot of women out there just kind of depend on the makeup too much.
Sure.
And,
But where are they taught this stuff?
yeah, no,
From our
there's-
society,
it's
right?
the society teaches it
Exactly.
from a young age. Their TV and magazines and internet and all the kind of stuff. It just like shoves it in their face, and I find it really sad.
It is.
And it's definitely a part of the life process to learn to accept yourself. And I think
Embracing
that's
it, yeah.
that's like a really big part of groundedness too, of like really truly accepting yourself, like where you're at today.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have, what are you dealing with?
Yep.
What do you look like? Find the thing you don't like about yourself the most, and like love that.
And back to last week's episode where we talked about like, being truly yourself, just being present with who you truly are. It's that self-acceptance. I'm not comparing myself to you. You're not comparing yourself to me. Why do we want to do that when we're completely unique, different people?
Oh yeah, we're totally unique. There's
Yeah.
no way you can compare.
No, and you shouldn't. I mean, we
But
do.
the mind,
Right.
the mind and the ego loves to compare.
Right.
And again, like, I'm starting to learn when I'm having those comparisons, it's just like really showing me like what areas do I want to grow in.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here's this person like I'm comparing myself to. I wish I had their qualities. Some qualities of theirs, and it's like, well, I can go spend time with that person. I can get to know them. I can be happy for them, and then just being around them, I start picking up on their qualities.
Yeah.
And we
Absolutely.
build connection and share with each other.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thank you, Kelly, for that quote, and we'll continue that as well. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, I think kind of what's coming up for me is I want like coming back to like the groundedness stuff. I feel like I want to share kind of a little bit of story of what I've been going through the past like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a awakening process, quite a while, 7 years ago now, and I decided like, oh yeah, I'm gonna move out to Ann Arbor. And at the time I was a massage therapist, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna do my own massage therapy business. I'm gonna be a musician. I'm gonna do all these things, and I got here, and life had a whole different plan for me.
Mm-hmm.
I meet these guys, and it turns out they're starting a construction company, and and they're like, hey, you want to come work with us one day on this one job? And man, I remember that day. It was just like, this is the last thing I want to do. I don't want to work construction. Like, man, that sounds like so laborious and terrible. Like, this is the worst. But I was sitting, and I heard this little voice in my head like, hey man, you gotta like figure out what you're doing. You gotta make some money. You gotta do something. You got an opportunity in front of you. You better take it. And here I am now, for almost 5 years later, still working with these guys. And I guess I'll plug them in here too. Auto Custom Craftsman, thank you guys. I love you. And what has happened to me with working with these guys has just been profound. You know, it was the last thing I ever wanted to do. I would have never dreamt that I'd be working construction. But learning to work construction with a group of guys and just showing up and doing the work each day has given me so much value in my life. You know, it helped me find that stability within myself.
Yeah.
So here I am generally working for a long time, not doing stuff I want to be doing, you know, and having to find emotional balance within that. Like, how do I find stability and how do I find joy in my day? Like doing stuff I'd rather not be doing, you know, and it's just so funny because time and time again, I think I've probably left the company like 3 or 4 times now. You know, I've had those like really emotionally unstable days where I'm just like, you know what, guys, screw this. I'm not doing it anymore. And you know, then I guess they just love me so much, and they're like, "Oh, Brandon, you know, you can come back." And you know, so here I am again, working with them, and you know, they're some of the deepest relationships I have now. Mm-hmm. You know, I get to see these guys all the time, and it's just, you know, facing that and facing my days, my opportunity, even though it wasn't what I wanted. You know, like, oh, this is what I want, but you know, the list of gifts that have been given to me through that are phenomenal. Now I'm like really skilled with my hands, you know, sure. I can build whatever I want, you know, I could remodel a whole house, you know, on my own if needed. I can, it's also been giving me like leadership skills, you know, I've been there for a while now, and so now I work with other guys that are newer and, you know, learning how to be a good leader, and it's just really beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's grounding the hell out of you.
Yeah. Now, to me, that's grounding. You know, like where I got stuck for years is like trying to escape that. You know, it's like this constant, like, oh, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, I'm supposed to be a musician. I'm supposed to be doing podcasts. Right. You know, like I'm supposed to be doing all this stuff that's not this.
Yeah.
And it just kept like delaying everything. But, you know, it's one thing I really want to point out is, you know, over this past year, I've like really accepted, actually it's probably been in the last few months where I've really accepted going to work. And it's even getting more and louder every day. And right as I do that, what are we doing? This podcast starts.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
It's just all too funny. Yeah. You know, and so if we can just quit trying to escape our lives, face it full on with our full awareness and presence as much as we can, you know, and you got to try. No one's perfect.
Right.
You know, it's not like you can do every day with full awareness.
Yeah.
All the time.
And you don't have to stop doing what you're doing in your job. I mean, yeah, no one needs to hate their job. You find something you at least enjoy doing. But even if it's not your calling necessarily, you know, it's a means to an end.
Yeah.
You know, and then when your extracurricular things can pop in and maybe they flourish, you know, that's truly living. Mm-hmm. But I think it's deeper than that even. I feel like I just really felt called, you know, and you felt called to do this, and we're doing this to help, you know, to be transparent, to show our wounds, to show the things that are everyday life type of stuff, mm-hmm. you know. And that's why we do it. When it's stated that purpose is we're here to help.
Yeah,
know?
I'm here to help. I want every man out there to know, like, you know, you can grow into a great man. You know, you don't need spirituality. You don't need religion. You know, you can develop your own relationship to that within yourself. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you don't have to go down all these crazy paths. All you have to do is face your life. Right. 100%. And then everything just starts to click after that.
And I think it's another thing to add to that is it's lack of control, like me letting go of control because I had none. Right, I had all these. I tried to control everything, and then it just unraveled. Right, when I was sharing about my past, and I got to that point where I surrendered completely. Like, I cried my eyes out. I physically hurt myself by crying. And at that moment, I let go. I let go of all the control that I used to have and wanted. And then I adopted a different philosophy because I was empty. I had emptied my cup, literally. I look back at it now knowing that. But in the moment, you could have told me that, and I said, "Shut up," like, just leave me alone. I'm gonna die. It's. But when I emptied my cup, what I realized is, I don't want to live like that. And what happened is, I started applying for jobs. Right, I put my resume out there, got my LinkedIn profile, and just a couple weeks later, I'm on my 7th interview with this company. I get an offer that it's amazing. Like, I just got the best job I could have ever. If I couldn't have gotten that job, had not all these things happened, and had I had fallen straight down on my face, and I got back up, empty, and now it's just filling me back up, and then I'm sitting in this space with a friend of mine, and just held space for her, and she just let it all out, and she just really never been heard, and these deep childhood wounds that she had. Just all came to the surface, and all I could do was listen. I just held space for her and loved her, and I cried with her, and it was beautiful. And the next day, she was just vibrant and glowing and all this stuff. And she looked me in the face and she says, "Shane, you need to do something." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "This is what the world needs. They need to be heard. They need to be. This needs to be exposed. A true masculine." And I'm not there yet. I know you're not either. I'm not speaking for you, but
Yeah.
I'm just learning. I just fell on my face not too long ago. I'm just getting back up, but I'm just allowing whatever to flow. Like, Bruce Lee talks about water, and I'll share that quote at the end here. But I think it's real relevant. And Bruce Lee was one of my childhood heroes. Man, I had posters on my ceiling, for Pete's sake, all over the place. I mean, he's just a badass, right?
He is a badass.
Who doesn't like Bruce Lee? But what I mean by that is, and then I met this beautiful woman. I wasn't even looking. I wasn't ready for a relationship or anything like that. I literally wasn't. And a deep conversation got sparked. And I just commented. And it just turned into this beautiful blossoming relationship. Like, I didn't try to do any of these things. I just emptied myself. But it wasn't me. Let's just be honest. The source, the universe, God, whatever you want to call him, sank my boat, and I just swam to shore and picked myself back up. He took, it was all taken, and I accepted that. And when I got to shore, I just made a different decision. Like, yeah, I don't need this control anymore. I'm going to continue on. And I feel that's what happened to me. So this is what the podcast is all about, too. Like, we approached each other about it, and here it is.
Mm-hmm. Here it is.
So,
and you're getting deep today, Shane. You've got a lot coming out.
Yeah, I do, don't I? Episode 2.
I love
What's
it.
episode 3 gonna happen?
Oh, it's so good.
I'm really crying into my pillow. Or you will be. One of the two. You want to end?
Do we got anything else?
I don't think so.
I'm starting to feel pretty
complete
with what we have going on today. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I feel good.
You want to
the Bruce Lee quote?
Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
quote?
I had all these quotes ready for you guys, but I'll save them for another day. I had to put my glasses on. Hold on. So,
gotta get the spectacles.
Something about getting older. You gotta wear some glasses here. This is a quote by Bruce Lee, and it's real relevant to our conversation I found. And empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So water is formless, right? It takes the form of whatever container it's in or not.
Yeah, and I mean, really, that's like facing your life. You show up and you be what you need to be, the best you can be in every moment.
Need to be. I like that.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Not try to control it.
Don't try to control it. So you got a situation in front of you, then
Absolutely, man.
you gotta face it and show up for it the best you can. And I think the more we just show up, the better everything works.
Yep. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Be water, my friends.
Be water.
Till next time.
Real quick though.
Yeah.
I also want to remind you, if you guys have made it to the end of the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment on the video. These are all things that really help get traction for our YouTube channel.
Yep.
And yeah, it's really important. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to see awesome conversations.
And a few months from now, we'll be actually doing a podcast and putting it on Apple and a couple other places.
Yeah. This will be eventually ported into all of the podcast kind of distribution.
Yep.
But we figured this isn't like a nice, easy way to start.
Yep. To work out the kinks and just see what we want to do, improve the quality of the equipment, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And also one thing too is we want to bring guests on. So we will be eventually having a guest on,
Oh yeah. There'll be guests and all those kinds of things. We'll see when that happens.
Different perspectives, different men, different women, that kind of thing we'd like to do just to mix it up. I'm sure you don't want to hear us talking all the time, so we'll bring in some more people as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many really, really good, awesome people around us.
We do.
I mean, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Brighton.
Yep.
We got a bunch of badasses around here, and I love it. So I'm ready to have conversations with them too, and share all this wisdom.
Absolutely, man.
Great. So yeah, I guess we will see you on the next one.
Thank you for joining us.
Peace.